part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Thank you for downloading the Chase Smith Podcast, proudly part of the Press Play Podcast Network. In this episode, I interviewed Don Mike Mendoza, host of the Producing While Asian podcast and the founder of DMH Mendoza Productions. We talk about his career in theater, La Tito Productions, his podcast, and our favorite musicals. Let's get it! Here with me, he's the host of the Producing While Asian podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. But more importantly, he's the executive artistic director of La Tito Productions, playing nationally Pittsburgh, DC, New York, LA, Northern Virginia, and soon Dallas, Texas. And he's the founder of DMH Mendoza Productions. You can catch all of his work and writings over at producingwhilasian.com. Don Mike Mendoza. Don Mike, what's up, man?
Hey, how are you, Chase? It's so good to talk to you and see you electronically, but I'm good.
It is great. Anytime I get to talk to you, my day is always better. And a lot of exciting things. So you have a show playing. We're going to talk about that in a few moments, but your podcast season 2 is underway, and have a big month in May next month. And we were really cool. Last year when you launched your show with us, we're able to coincide that with AAPI Heritage Month in May. And that's coming around the corner. And so just as we were looking at season, I was like, dude, let's just get together, record a pod, and let's just talk, man. And so thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to finally have a moment to chat with you and, kind of catch up and also get to know each other, because we know each other professionally, but we haven't just had time to talk. So, and I know you're super busy with getting all of us, on track as our, fearless leader with Press Play. So thank you for,
it is a ton of fun. Yeah. We've got to know each other through Brooks May, who is just fantastic delight. Brooks is just another person you have a conversation with. Your day is going to be awesome. And so how do you know Brooks?
So Brooks and I go back to freshman year of college at American University, and we both joined the same co-ed service fraternity. And she became my little. So it's co-ed, but they still call everybody brothers. So it's Alpha Phi Omega. And I had a great time, but when it came time to getting your quote unquote little brother, Brooks was my firstborn. And so we instantly became friends. We knew each other before the pledging process, but it's, she's like you said, she's one of those people that you become friends with right away. Like you talk to her and it's just, she's such an exciting, fun human, and now she's a lifelong friend. And but she came to me one day and said, "Hey, I'm involved with this really cool group called Press Play Podcast, and I feel like you'd be really good at podcasting." And I told her, "You know what? Shut the front door. I've been thinking about this for years. And so let's do it." And so here we are. So it's because of Brooks that we're having this conversation.
Love it. I met Brooks. We took writing classes at Second City together in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
And we were in writing one together, and they encouraged you to go out and grab drinks and hang out with people in your class. It's kind of form that camaraderie and community and to write together. And so throughout writing one, you're still getting to know everyone. There'd be a group of us to go out, but then we would all go to writing 2. And all of a sudden there was this group of 5 or 6 of us. I was the only guy. There were 5 or 6 other girls, and it just had so much fun, Don Mike. And she was one of them. We went through writing 1, 2, 3, and 4. And at Second City, when you're in the writing program, after writing 4, you have to submit a writing packet to finish the program. And writing 5 and 6, you write for a student show to write a show at Second City, which is an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And so this, we're all super close. What are you going to submit? What are your packets? And so we all submitted for writing 5 together. I was the only one that didn't get in. And so all of my friends and all of them, they all got accepted. And so I'm super happy for them, but I'm super bummed that I don't get to finish the program with them. But it's all good. I submitted next time. And the sketch I submitted All right. So I had Brian Stack on my podcast about a year ago. He used to write for Conan. He writes for Colbert now. And I had him, we read the sketch on my podcast. It was called Apocalypse. I'm not going to subject everyone to listen to it again. Anyway, it wasn't very good. Although it was one of my favorite sketches.
Hey, whatever.
But went to support their show. The show was brilliant. Their director of the show, Anthony, he now produces for Nickelodeon. He does all that. Oh my gosh, I forget his name. Anyway, it was a brilliant show. And yeah, so that's how Brooks and I met. And then as a network
fiance too,
Jake. So I met Jake at their show and we went.
Okay,
and,
awesome.
And then Jake and Brooks, they came to my show and we just kind of stayed in touch. And yeah, they're getting married like in a month. Are you going?
In Scotland. I am figuring that out right now. Like, I need to be there because I'm just like, if I don't want to miss this wedding. I'm just trying to figure it out.
We're going, Don.
Are you going?
Yes.
Okay, so that's more
now.
of a reason to go.
You need to go. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, it's happening. I will see.
We're leaving our kids here. Like, you've got to go.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I don't know if I should bring it up. I don't know if he's like invited. I don't know. So like, that's great. So yes, I'm going to say here on this podcast, I'm committing Brooks Renee May. I'm coming to your wedding.
Let's go.
I need to figure out my plane because she's just like, everything's set. I've RSVP'd, so it's a yeah, but yes. I just have to get my stuff together.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like when there's a destination wedding, it's a little more appropriate to talk about, hey, are you going? Are you going? Even if like, just because, especially one that's in Scotland, I might be just being all of their stuff. Maybe they didn't invite anybody, just us. Maybe it's just like a 3-person wedding.
It's like you and me, your wife, Brooks and Jake in a castle. Like that's what's going to happen. Can't wait.
But yeah, we cannot wait. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So exciting. Great.
Yeah,
I knew that there were people that I knew from just our circle of friends that were going, and like I hadn't seen them in years, and I'm excited to see them, but I'm also excited that there's new friends going like you. So it's going to be a really fun group of people, and her family is hilarious. Like, I don't know if you've met any of them, but they're great.
I met her family at their show. But it was just briefly. We're so excited. I'm so pumped that you're going. Yes. This is so cool.
Yes, it's going to be good.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, hey, I want to hear about your journey into starting your own production company. And its growth and all of that, some influences. When did you know, Don Mike, that you just were made for the stage and the live theater? Like, was that something that you knew at a pretty young age, or did you like when did you realize that that's how you were wired?
I feel like I'm just like every other performer when I say that in real life, like IRL, if you know me, I can be a very shy person. Like, I can be somebody who's not really outgoing sometimes. If I'm in an environment where I don't really know anyone, I really do keep to myself. And so in like elementary school, I would do like school shows and stuff because you had to, right? Like when you're in school, they make you do shows for your parents. But like, it wasn't until probably like 4th or 5th grade, I had this incredible music teacher. His name was Wayne Walters. And I'm pretty sure he's still around in Pittsburgh. I need to find him, but he came to my like senior year high school musical. And, he really loved his job, and he loved making kids, enjoy performing and love music and all that. Everyone's favorite class was music class because he was just an awesome person. And so that's how I started performing. And then in middle school and high school, I was involved with the dance ensemble because I could move, and we had like trimesters where they would make you do like dance one semester, or it was trimesters, dance one trimester, drama another trimester, and then like music another trimester. And so I really took to dance. And so I got into the dance ensemble, was doing that. So really, and I was still not like the one who was up front doing all the things, but I was put up front because I am a boy. So like, they were like, oh, well, it's one boy and like 20 girls. So like, you're going to do everything that involves a man. And so it wasn't until sophomore year of high school that my friend, I'm going to shout her out, Elisa Beverly, she and I,
shout out to Lisa.
We like duet auditioned for the musical because we were both like, all of our friends are doing it. We don't want to not do it this year. So we're going to go. And Elisa and I got together and did it was some song from Beauty and the Beast, and I'm pretty sure it was atrocious, and I'm pretty sure it was like if me today were to go back to 2003 and watch this audition, I would like cringe and hide under my bed. But we got in, and the first musical I ever did was The Pirates of Penzance. Okay. And I was a policeman with Elisa, and like, so that kind of pushed me more into the arts and performing world. I had such a good time, and I, was already in dance ensemble, so I just kind of went feet first into the performing arts. And I did it through high school, and then I got to my senior year and graduated. I graduated, and the expectation for me was like, I'm going to go to college and study political science and broadcast journalism, because I had learned that going into the arts was not a viable career option.
You can't make a living, Don Mike, doing that stuff.
Cannot. So I had to go and do something that was useful. So I went to college, and I went to American, and I took my first broadcast class and my first poli-sci class, and I learned that I hated the poli-sci class. Mm-hmm. It was just like not my cup of tea. And maybe I took the wrong class. It was about political theory. I found it to be so boring. But I like politics. Like I like the, the candidacy side of things.
That's so interesting. That's
okay.
Before I transferred, I was also a broadcast journalism major in history. And I loved my political science class. That I took. And I loved my broadcast journalism experience as well. So it's just fascinating that, I don't know, birds of a feather, Don Mike.
Right. That's why we get along. And Brooks too was a broadcast journalism major. And that's how she and I met. Right. And so, so then I, liked broadcast, and it turned out that fall, I kid you not, I was on the quad during the student involvement fair. Mm-hmm. And this person who became a very good friend of mine roller skated up to me in a gold onesie. And she said, "Hey, do you do theater?" And I said, "I did in high school. Why?" And she said, "Well, we're looking for ensemble members for this department musical. I think you should audition, if you're thinking of doing it for fun, because at AU, you don't have to be a major to do a musical or a play."
Where is American University at?
American University is in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So it's in the capital, and right in Northwest on the edge, right near Maryland. And so I ended up auditioning. I felt like it was the first time I had ever auditioned in front of the show that was already cast. So it was everyone in the show had been cast in the spring beforehand, because that's the way they did it for the fall musical. So it was me and several other people who got in and became friends. That was my first time. It was like a 17-year-old. I sang a song from Guys and Dolls in front of the cast of the show. So I was already like, oh my God, this is like pressure. And I got in. And so I did this musical while I was in this poli-sci class I didn't like, and was liking broadcast journalism. And so the show, though, was a musical called, so have you heard of the movie called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Maybe.
No, I'm sorry.
No worries. No one really has, unless you're like a hardcore Jane Fonda fan. And it's, and I say this sarcastically, it is an upper of a show. It's about dance marathons in the 1920s, where people would dance for days to earn money because they were broke, right? It was like the Depression. So these people would dance for like a week.
They've got to be remaking that as we speak, Don Mike. They've got to be remaking that.
Right. So somebody thought it was a really good idea to make that movie into a musical. And so AU is all about like new works and stuff. So this was their main stage fall musical. I don't know what I was getting into. And it was intense. Like, I will say, in the experience, like, I just didn't know what I was in front of, because I'd never been in such an intense show before. That was like really like, depressing is not the right word. It's just very hard material, because it's very like real, because that actually happened. And so our director, she loves the method, and she, really pushed all of us. And so to me, as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, what I thought was like not fun was actually her pushing us. And so we got to the end of that show, and then spring semester, I realized I didn't like poli-sci. I wasn't in a show because I was like, wow, that was intense. I'm not doing another musical at this university. Like that was crazy. And I was still liking broadcast, but by the time I got to like mid spring semester, I realized I really miss theater. Like I miss doing the arts. And so I secretly changed my second major from political science to musical theater. I did not tell my parents until I got the acceptance letter into the program. And I was like, guess what I did? And they were like, what? And so
are your parents in DC?
They're here in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And so I went forward and studied musical theater and broadcast journalism, and they fit really well hand in hand.
Good.
And that was the dual degree that I finished with at AU. And so how that launched into my career is
so what other shows did you do at AU?
So that was the first one, They Shoot Horses, Don't They? The musical. And then we did, I got into You're in Town my sophomore year.
Okay.
Which was so fun. And then we did a couple of like smaller review type shows. And then my junior year, we did Thoroughly Modern Millie. And I was one of the two Asians in that show. I had to learn Chinese, and I don't know Mandarin. It was like, what you learn about that show is that the two Chinese characters speak in two different dialects. They speak in Cantonese, but they sing in Mandarin. So we couldn't even go to a Chinese student and be like, we had a coach. It was another student, but they sat with us and they're like, why is this in two different dialects? Like, why do they speak differently? And so I was like, I don't know, ask the person who wrote the show. So my roommate and I, because we were the only two Asian people really in the department, were cast as these roles, and we were also talented. So folks that are listening, it's not because they were like, oh, Asian people. We had to learn Chinese. So that I think Millie was a lot of fun. And so that was junior year. And then senior year, I got into Wild Party, but my academic load and all that prevented me from really committing to it. So I had to quit. And but there was, our senior capstone and stuff. So did those shows in college. And the first show I did outside of college was 42nd Street.
Don, Mike, I have a confession.
Yeah.
I never heard of any of those shows that you just mentioned.
Oh no, I mean that's fine.
I'm so sorry.
Like a deep.
I am so sorry.
That's
if
okay.
It wasn't a movie, I probably like my musical theater background. I love the arts in the theater, and I like would go to see anything. It's just I don't have a huge like catalog of 42nd. What'd you call it?
It's called 42nd Street.
42nd Street. Yeah, I love the third act and how it's like I just like I'm so sorry.
All good. No, that's okay. I mean, like now you know them or of them, so you're gonna have to go and listen to them.
We just went. Well, so I grew up in West Virginia. I grew up in Parkersburg, which you probably heard of being from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like West Virginia, like I only know like Charleston and
Morgantown, probably
Morgantown because of how close it is. But outside of that, I'm so sorry, West Virginians.
That's okay. So Parkersburg is right on the Ohio River. Like Morgantown, Charleston, and Parkersburg kind of make like a triangle-ish, like roughly. That's kind of that'll help you maybe. So there wasn't a huge like art scene there, and it was just like super sports heavy. Just really Chicago's when like just huge like infusion of art. We just went and we saw Hadestown.
So good.
It was like one of the first like opening shows when they opened the Columbus Theater again. I'd never heard of it. Didn't know what, like I'd never heard of it.
I didn't really know what to expect either when I went to go see Hadestown. I listened to the soundtrack before and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I need to go watch it. And
well, and I'd never like didn't even know it had that much acclaimed success. Like I had just like no clue, like nothing.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I still didn't know what was going on. I wasn't the biggest fan of Hadestown. Like I was very impressed with what they did, but it was just wasn't my take on Greek mythology or whatever. Like
I liked the like New Orleans, like kind of that take on it. But I get it. It's definitely an acquired taste of a show. It's because it's really different, and it's really like dark. And based on the tale that it's about, it is a dark story. So,
Yes.
but I thought that was interesting. I will say I liked it, but it's not my favorite. I'm not like bopping to it down the street.
Yeah.
So it's not like a Hamilton, so it's a little different.
Yeah. We're gonna hey, if you're listening, we're gonna talk about our favorite musicals after the break. So stick around because I can't wait to you're gonna laugh at my list, I'm sure, because you're just like, oh my gosh, this
I'm so excited to hear what you're.
I hope I've heard of at least two of yours. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's coming soon. That's coming soon.
Don't feel embarrassed that you don't know any shows I've mentioned. It's okay.
Okay.
And so there's plenty that I don't know, and I studied musical theater.
We are going to see Wicked here in a couple of weeks, which we're excited about.
That's one show I've not seen. I've only listened to it. I've seen illegal clips on YouTube, but I've never watched the show.
All right. Another quick story. So we were supposed to go see it in 2020. It got canceled. I got our tickets for Christmas 2019 tickets. So we were going in the spring and it was canceled. This show for Leslie, she didn't get to go to New York her senior year in high school with all of her friends. And of course, their class went to a show and they saw Wicked. And so they all loved it. And it's like this huge like moment in their life. And so she's always kind of felt like, oh my gosh, I missed it. So we're all really excited to go. It's canceled. We're all sad. These are how great her friends are. I didn't really know anything about Wicked. I know you're shocked. I said,
it's okay.
Would it be possible for like the 5 or 6 of you to just sing a couple songs from Wicked, like over Zoom? This is when everyone was doing like, Zoom. Like, yeah, we could do it. And they took off and they did the whole first act, Don Mike, like legit. What? They did like green screen background. They knew when to change their, like, that's
amazing.
Incredible. Oh my gosh. It was incredible. When they told me what they were doing, I made like our own playbill just to like surprise her. And I had like her favorite, like, it was a really fun, like moment that I think that they all enjoyed like the challenge. But I'm just like, I don't know how it ends. Like that was the first act.
So now you've only seen the first act and you're like, well,
and so, yeah, that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. Like, I think it's like May 16th or something. So we're pretty pumped about that, but right before Scotland.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Wicked it's a fun show to listen to. And I'm sure seeing it in person is going to be like incredible. I only hear good things about the show, which is why it's still around. Yeah. It's such a good, fun, wholesome show that, it's exciting.
Good. So anyway, so back to, okay. So you graduate and
my goals were to either get like most 21 year olds who are studying musical theater, like, I'm gonna hoof it and go to New York and get on Broadway. And the other option was I wanted to become the Filipino Anderson Cooper. Neither of those things were going to pan out because, one, the broadcast industry in 2010 was laying people off rather than hiring them because it was still the recession.
Yeah.
And then with theater, I've ran into the hard truth that we didn't learn in school, that somebody who is AAPI like me has very limited opportunities to land bigger parts outside of being like the best friend or the ensemble member or whatever, because there just aren't those opportunities. At that time in 2010, the only 8 quote unquote AAPI Asian shows that I knew of to get involved in that would go to the Broadway or touring level were like Miss Saigon. And that's about it. Like there's, like The King and I and really classic musicals, South Pacific, but there's really, at that time, there were not a lot of shows that I knew I could go for easily and achieve my goal. So I was doing the actor thing for a year and a half, and I had a good time, but it was just not what I was hoping it would be. So in that time, I had gotten a full-time job in marketing for the university. So I was working at American. Brooks May was my roommate at the beginning of that, and I was kind of doing little shows here and there. And so I didn't admit it to my friends, but I definitely had a thought of like, is this it? Like this is what after college is? I'm just gonna act in things that aren't really a big deal and stay in DC and work this job that I at the time really disliked my boss. And so I didn't know what was next. So until the summer of 2011, I did a play in the Capitol Fringe Festival. And the Fringe Festival, for those that don't know, is just like a whole festival of just like little engine that could type productions. You do productions in like found spaces that this festival gives you, like either you're in a really nice theater or you're in like a loft with no air conditioning or you're like in a parking lot, like things like that. So
Oh wow.
this
Is it in
play
DC?
in DC. And so I did this play where I met the person that I co-founded Latido with,
Okay.
and his name is Reggie Kabiko. And I will forever be grateful to him because he became a mentor and he's still a very good friend. When I was at that time, when I was 23, he was 43. And so he and I connected. He's also Filipino American, and he also studied musical theater, but at NYU. And he found his success after college by being a teaching artist and getting into spoken word poetry.
Ooh.
And so he's done very well in his career, where he was back in the day, he was on like HBO's Def Jam Poetry and Def Jam Comedy. And like he's worked with like really awesome names as a poet, but he has musical theater talent. So when we met,
Which musical theater talent is, I think, the cream of the crop talent. I think it's the best to be able to act and sing to someone who is in a row in front of the stage or 80 rows up. To have that endurance. Like I just think like they're the best. They're the best of the best.
It's a workout. It's definitely, it's a sport. Like some people that don't really know, they're like, oh, it's theater, whatever, but it is a sport. Like you have to train your voice, train your body, all that stuff, make sure you sleep and hydrate, all that.
2 shows a day it's remarkable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, and people get injured, like those things happen. And so vocally get injured, which is the worst, because it's not like PT. You have to go and get like vocal surgery. It's a lot. So Reggie and I met, and at the time I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like definitely trying to create like showcases with my friends from school, because they were all in the same boat of like, well, we want to perform, but we're not in the shows we want to get into. So why don't we do like a cabaret? So when Reggie and I met, he was like, oh, you're doing that. That's really cool. I have this dream where I want to put my 2 sides in the same space, which are spoken word poetry and musical theater into a show, not necessarily written together, but so that these 2 subject matters could coexist. And so I said, well, I'm doing this cabaret. I'm open to whatever. Like, let's try this out. So I remember the moment we were sitting on a rooftop in DC on U Street at a bar. And I said, okay, so we're going to start this series. What are we going to call it? And so he was like, well, we're both Filipino. It should do something with like, I don't know, like Manila, like the city, or like something like that in the title. But then I was like, okay, well, we can't call it something lame like Do Re Mi. And he was like, yeah, we can't do Do Re Mi. And then I was like, well, what are the other notes in the range? And so we, went through all of them. And so I said, why don't we call it like Manila Ti Do? And he was like, that sounds cool, but I feel like it's a mouthful. And I'm like, okay, well, what if we just drop the city and call it Latido? And he was like, all right, let's do it. Like, so we were like, we're going to start this cabaret series called Latido, and it was going to have musical theater people and spoken word people all in the same space. And we were going to start it in the summer of 2011. And then, of course, the fall of 2011, I kept getting cast in shows. And so I was like I did a production of like Kiss Me Kate and like
heard of that one.
Yes. So Kiss Me Kate, and then a play called Take Me Out, which is about baseball. And so 6 months goes by, and Reggie's like, okay, I need you to stop getting cast in shows, because we're going to do our show and we're going to launch it in January of 2012. So I said, okay, fine. I will finish these shows. Let's figure this out. I dropped out of a production of Dreamgirls because I was like,
that one.
Yes. And so I said to Reggie, how often are we going to do this show? And he said, well, I said, because mostly things in DC happen once a month. And he said, well, yeah, that's normal. He said, go with me on this. He was like, let's do this show every week, every Monday, because Monday is when show or theaters are off, when people don't act, so there'll be performers. And we'll do it every week. And I looked at him and I was like, every week? I was, is the same show every week? He was like, no, it's going to be a different show every week, different people. We're just going to do it. And I said, okay. He said, it's worth it. I promise. Like, well, let's go, like, go with me on this. And I said, all right. So we did once a week, a show every Monday. It was about 2 hours long, different people every week. We did, for the first 4 years of Latido in DC, we did about 46 shows a year.
Oh my goodness.
Because they were it was every Monday that weren't holiday Mondays. And so, unless there was a Monday that we canceled, but that that to this day, he gets credit for that, because if we didn't do that, Latino would not have exploded the way it did in DC. It did what Reggie wanted, which was it put spoken word and musical theater together. It did what I wanted it to do, which was like to push me up as a performer and really test my skills to be like not just a performer but a host. And then I also started learning to produce, like talking to people and getting connections and doing things around town. And then it allowed our company, which was just a show in 2012, to then open a second show in New York, because we had a lot of friends who, or not friends, but more now alumni, because they weren't just my friends, they were people, performers that were coming to us, alumni of our show who were either in New York already or had moved to New York and had all said, we love the community feel of Latido. Can we do this in New York? And so New York launched only after the first year of DC. So we did the weekly thing in DC for 4 years and then expanded to New York in 2013, a year later. And so there was one point in my professional life where I was working a full-time job. So I was still doing the like salaried job thing, was producing a weekly show in DC and then a monthly show in New York, and was like bounced back and forth between the two cities and doing all that. And so, and I even today, I'm like, I look back on that time and I'm like, holy F, like who did I think I was at like 24 doing that, not sleeping, like sleeping on buses, like if I was fancy, I got a train ticket, like all that stuff. So I knew Megabus and Bolt Bus so well at that time. And so we did that, and by the time we got to 2016, we realized that New York and DC were doing really well. And so we scaled back on the DC show, where it went from weekly to bi-weekly, and then from weekly down to monthly. The reason being is that we needed to like accommodate scheduling so that I wouldn't like, die of exhaustion. And then also, our venues were kind of changing every now and then. So we had like a really great venue where we started in DC called Black Fox Lounge, and that closed in 2014. So DC got thrown into like, we're homeless, where do we go? And so we went to two different venues after that. And New York was getting a little more sophisticated. So New York was a whole different ball game. Things are more intense there, where they have writers and contracts, and you can't have another show within 20 blocks of our show, or like within 2 months of this show, like that have the same name. It's like very specific. So as a 25-year-old, I was like, oh wow, this is a lot. So we did that for a while, and we scaled back on DC to accommodate New York. And then in 2018, I took a trip to LA to see a friend who was in a musical called Allegiance. And that trip, I was going there and had some of our alumni live in LA. And
Megabus to LA.
Megabus to LA all the way. So I was going to go, and we had this alumni, her name is Sherry Berg, and she's great. She has one of the only two quote unquote mature content videos on the Latido YouTube channel. Okay. I will stop there, but it's she did something from Rocky Horror Picture Show. So we like had to be like, I
have heard of that one.
Bodies. So
right.
He was like, oh, you're coming out here, like we should do a Latido out here. And I'm like, okay, like let's turn it into a work trip. So March of 2018, we did our first Latido in Los Angeles, and somebody at that show, her name is Lindsay Hopper. She's now my associate artistic director in LA. She came up to me after the show and she said, how do we keep this in LA? And I said, well, someone has to run it here. Will it be you? And she was like, I'm going to do it. And so
it's amazing.
That happened. So we added LA, and then we added Pittsburgh in 2020. I moved home to Pittsburgh in 2019. 2020, we were going to launch Latido in Pittsburgh, and we all know what happened that year.
Yep.
And so it launched virtually. So we did kind of that thing. And then we added, so 2021 took the year off just to plan. 2022, this year, we added Northern Virginia because we rethought DC, where DC would be our like flagship events, big events with big partners, because it's where we started. But Northern Virginia, just across the Potomac, has a lot of people that have done our show, and a lot of people that wanted to do our show, but they don't really travel across the river. So we launched that same kind of monthly idea in Northern Virginia in April. So a month ago now. And where we have a new team that, again, another alum who lives in Dallas reached out, and she wants to start it. Her name is Sarah Powell. and
It's
Latido
amazing.
Dallas is going to launch this summer. So that's the journey of Latido and
That's
me.
incredible.
So I changed from a performer to a producer, but I still perform. So I identify as a producer that performs. And at the end of the day, when I was worried in 2012, 10 years ago, that I wouldn't work with the actors that I dreamed of working with, because I thought you only had to be an actor to do that. I have worked with most of them as both a producer and a performer. And some of them I can call my friends now, which is like, blows my mind. Like, who knew?
People can't see this through I have the biggest smile. Like, this is just
right.
such an awesome story. Oh my goodness.
It's
So
crazy.
all of those shows are unique.
Yes.
Not one show is the same
not
location.
One show is the same. Each show that we do is a different show still.
Wow.
But now it's a little easier where we realize that themes are helpful. So we have themes that rotate.
Okay.
But the casts of these shows are different. I think what Reggie described it as,
every show the cast is different.
Yes, unless we repeat a show on purpose. But every event, every production, every cabaret, all different people.
Your alumni list has to just be incredible.
This is really
Is it
disappointing.
over 200 performers?
Oh yeah, well over 200.
Over 500 performers?
I'd say we're somewhere between 500 and 1,000.
Whoa!
Somewhere in there, I will say. And and I haven't counted recently how many shows across all the cities. We're probably nearing, between 400 and 600 shows total.
That's an incredible community.
It's so great. And I think we've really built this idea that it's a supportive community. Like, you do a Latido show and it's not competition. If you mess up, no one's going to be like, oh, well, so-and-so didn't get that note. It's, oh, okay, like whatever, just people actually cheer for you. They're like, oh, keep going. Like you've got this. It's about community building, not just between performers, but between the audience and the performers. After the show, we encourage people, we say like, hug a poet, hug a performer, hug a singer, like talk to people, talk to each other in the audience. And it's beyond just our alumni. It's also our audience members. We have a lot of people that follow the show that are just great normal people who aren't in the arts and just are appreciators of the arts, and they support and they go to all the things we do. And if they happen to be in a different city when we have something going on, they show up, and it's so cool to see.
Well, now I'm just upset that it's not in Columbus, because there is an awesome art scene in Columbus. I don't know if you've heard it. It's popping. It's awesome. And maybe that could be number 7.
It could
or number 8
or number 8. We never know. It's at this point, I've never purposefully planned a show in a different city. It's always been an alum who's raised their hand and said, hey, bring it here. So I haven't gone into a market where I don't know anyone yet. But that's how I
just hope it happens, because I would, that sounds incredible. I'd love to just I would love to enjoy it and appreciate it and support you. It sounds the best. Is there like a show that that sticks out? Like I want to.
Yeah. So one of my favorite memories is, so there's so many, there's so many that are just like milestone moments. I'd say I'll give 2 quick stories. So the first one was, when Reggie and I started, there's a Broadway actor. His name is Jose Lana, and he is a Filipino American. He's done very well. Everybody knows him, and within the community. And I said to Reggie in 2012, I was like, oh, it would be so cool because we would always dream about what was coming next. And so Reggie was like, who would you want to do this show? And at that time, I was just a year or so out of college. And my voice teacher had always been pushing me to do material that Jose had done, because he was like, well, you might be auditioning for an Asian role one day and you need that kind of stuff. So I said to Reggie, it'd be wild if Jose Lana did Latido. Like, that would be crazy. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. And because he's from Northern Virginia, so he's in DC often, his family's there. So then I need to remember the year. I want to say it was like 2018. There was the national tour of The King and I.
Okay.
And which is, if you've heard of it, it's it's the story of the English teacher who goes to, at the time, Siam, but Thailand. I
am familiar with The King and I think we watched it in 6th grade. Like it's
a classic. And so Jose was playing the king. And so one random day, I get a message from a friend who said, "Hey, my friend Michelle really wants to do a cabaret in DC to raise money for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS." And I said, "Okay, like who's your friend?" "Oh, my friend Michelle. She's in the touring cast of The King and I that's coming to the Kennedy Center. Like, do you think you could chat with her?" And I, was one of those things where it's like you fake it till you make it. I was like, "Yes, I can. Like, let me talk to her."
Yeah.
And so she and I connected, Michelle Lou Coughlin, and her co-producer for that cabaret, LeMay Copras. And they were like, "Hey, we want to work with Latido. If you can help us put this cabaret together with a venue and all that, like we'll get our cast to come and do stuff and we'll work it out." So we put together this event called One Night in Bangkok. And so they did sing that song too. And sure enough, Jose Lana shows up and does Latido. And I turned to Reggie and I was like, "This is happening right now. Like he's here." And so Reggie was like, "Yeah, he's here." And so now Jose, I consider, a friend and a colleague, and it's crazy. And so,
Incredible.
so that's the first story. The second story is there's a venue in New York called 54 Below, but it's now called Feinstein's 54 Below. And 54 Below is a cabaret space that lives underneath what used to be the old Studio 54.
Okay.
And it's on 54th and 8th, right in Midtown. And so in 2013, 2014, it opened in 2012 around the same time as we started Latido. But in 2013, 2014, I was seeing videos of Broadway stars performing at this place called 54 Below. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That would be an awesome dream to do or whatever." Because I even saw like friends who were alums of Latido go and perform there because they'd gotten to Broadway shows or whatever. And I will fully admit that one night in like June of 2015, I went out to happy hour before a cabaret that I was part of in DC, called Music in the Night, that Latido eventually took over and now hosts, with Capital Pride. And I had gone to happy hour. I was like feeling really good about myself. And I was like, what if Latido was at 54 Below? Like, why not? Like, we're great. We've been around for 2.5 years at that point. I was like, let's do it. So like I sent an email. I was like tapping away on my laptop, sent this email like to an email address at 54 Below. It was like, "Dear whoever, I think my show would be great. Please let us know how we can be considered." Well, first of all, I drunkenly emailed the kitchen. And the kitchen manager was like, "Well, I'm not the person, but I'm going to forward it to Jennifer Ashley Tepper, who is in charge of programming here, and she'll get back to you." And so the next day, Jennifer got back to me and she was like, "I think this is great. Like, let's book your show here and see how it does. And, who knows?" And so we went forward and we did a contract, and early September of 2015, Latido happened at 54 Below. And I was on that stage and I was standing there thinking, I was like, I'm on the same stage as all of these people that I admire and want, either have worked with or want to work with or whatever.
Yeah.
And now Latido adds 54 Below to its resume. And like, we were a little show, they gave us like I think it was like a Wednesday at like 7:30 p.m. So it was like middle of the week. And like, granted, we didn't sell out the house, but we got a good group of people who were there, and like it, we added it to our history. And we'll be back there again someday, but I'm glad we were there. And, and we were there before it became a little corporate and was bought by Michael Feinstein. And so those are the two kind of top memories. I
love it. Don Mike, I feel like we are both dreamers.
Yeah.
That we just put our goals and our ambitions out in the world and just like do all we can to make them happen. And sometimes you
don't even think it's going to happen, and it happens.
Yeah. I love it. My aspirations get me in trouble sometimes.
Sure.
And like, thankfully, Leslie helps to keep me a little grounded. But she understands, like, I just have to dream. Like, it feels super, if I'm not dreaming or thinking about something that could be bigger or better, or like the next, it's very like dead ending. And like, I don't know. I just got to dream. I gotta
have to hope that there's
something to look
forward to.
Yeah.
and something bigger to achieve, and or just something that you've always wanted to do that can happen, because you can't go through life thinking things won't happen or thinking you can't dream about it. Like,
right. I'm sure there are people now thinking that our top musical list isn't going to happen. So let's take a break. We're going to come back, and then I just want to talk about our favorite musicals, and then hear about your podcast. Is that good?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Stick around. Don Mike Mendoza. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers, who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
We are excited to announce that we are joining the Press Play Podcast Network. The Krypton Report podcast is dedicated to all things Superman, Supergirl, and the planet Krypton. We discuss movies, TV, game, comics, and all things DC.
So join me, Tyler, with my co-host James and Jania.
So join us as we explore DC's multiverse.
Look for Krypton Report on all social media platforms.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Listen, it is beyond time for you to join a book club. I know you've been thinking about it, and everyone's doing it. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey everyone, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. Backed by popular demand, I'm excited to let you know that new episodes of the Hyman Podcast will drop every other Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're going to continue the conversations we started last season and keep having those hard conversations. There is so much in store for you this season, and I'm excited to share it with you. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single moment. The Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, we're back on the Chase Smith podcast with just the incredible Don Mike Mendoza talking all sorts of stuff, Latino, talking about musicals I've never heard of, hearing these incredible stories. This has just been such a delight. Before we talk about our favorite list, let's talk about Producing While Asian, your podcast with us, Don Mike.
Yes.
You just launched season 2. Tell us, does this supplement the productions that you've just talked about, or is this
No.
kind of like completely different from your shows in these cities?
Producing While Asian for me is more of a self-produced project and dream. And I think it's my way of really not only reflecting back on where I came from, but a way of highlighting amazing folks that I've met already in the first 10 years now of doing what I do. And the reason why it's called Producing While Asian is that, I was inspired in the pandemic when I started seeing the unfortunate, prejudice and discrimination against Asian American people because of the COVID myths and all that and misinformation. It kind of compiled on top of something I was already feeling in the arts community of like the tale as old as time excuse from producers that is, quote, we can't find them when they do a show like Aladdin or, any number of shows where they say, I can't find a person of Middle Eastern descent. I can't find a person of, Japanese American descent or whatever it is. Producers at not even 5 years ago or whatever, even 10 years ago, were quick to say, I can't find them. So the quick solution was to default to a different ethnicity or do a different show or not do a story that could have been really great because, quote unquote, we can't find them. And so I learned that also applied to the creative side of things. So if you had more people of any ethnicity, but specifically for my podcast, Asian American, or they've recently redefined it as AANHPI, which is like Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander.
Okay.
Or ANPI. I just learned of it last week. And so it's So the Biden administration recently recategorized. And, on the production side, if you have more people of any ethnicity or AANHPI behind the table, you would find people that are meant to be in certain shows or meant to be in certain roles, or have find someone who can help with the sensitivity toward a topic that is being talked about, or a story that's being told. So producing while Asian for me is saying like, hey, here they are, like I'm helping you do the work of saying, here's this producer, here's this performer or slash producer, here's this singer songwriter, here's this actor, here's this music director, that are all from the NHPI community, that I'm also saying at the end of my podcast, tell the people how they can reach you.
Yeah.
Like, how can they find you? And that, to me, it's important, because I would not like to see a future where, quote, we can't find them still exists.
Right.
Yeah.
So when hopefully people go find that podcast after listening to this, they're going to hear stories like this. They're going to hear personal, hey, this is my journey. This is like theater to me. And you highlight their careers on your podcast.
Yes, exactly. And it really is a chance for people to see that there is someone in every category of the arts and entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
And also not only them personally, but also their work. We had our first interview with Aaron Albano and Telly Leung. Telly Leung, who is a huge Broadway star, also Aaron Albano in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron right now is in the touring cast of Hamilton. Telly is known for a lot of things, including Aladdin, at playing Aladdin. And he was in Allegiance, the musical, which is a Japanese American story. And, the two of them on our show talking about a movie they produced called Ensemble, which isn't specifically about Asian people, but it's about ensemble members of Broadway and how they survived the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and how they got through it, and, their stories. So it's, it's really just trying to get this community out there, so people can hear their stories and know that they're people too, and that they also have real experiences, that, the majority of what you see in entertainment is not the only stories that you hear about, or the only people that exist in the media universe.
Yeah. It's an incredible podcast. We love having it on the network. Thanks for just like partnering with us and making it happen. It's incredible. Everyone go check it out. Producing While Asian, anywhere you listen to anything. It's the best. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
What do you got coming down the next couple weeks with the pod?
So we've got, of course, May is I'm still struggling with it, but like
Right.
AANHPI Heritage Month. And, in that month, and also later in Filipino American History Month, which is October, we're usually a show that happens every other week, but in May and October, eventually, we're going to do a weekly episode and highlighting different people of different backgrounds. And so my goal is to make all of the weekly shows in May not only be obviously from the community, but women from the community too. Because, the arts and entertainment, like, unfortunately also is a very male driven industry. And so, to highlight these incredible women that do amazing things, and, get their stories out there. We've got, I know our first episode in the month is a woman named Alex Manalo. She is a young theater artist here in Pittsburgh who is accomplished in her own right, but also decided to hop on board and make Latido what it is here. Our second interview will be with a woman named Laura Nicolas Elias, and she is an actor first, but turned producer, and she's also very involved in politics. So like she's using her theater and producing skills to push, to help with political stuff. Like she did a lot for Filipino Americans for Biden Harris, and now she's pushing to help with the Philippine election that's happening for the progressive candidate that is running for president over there. Another guest will be Cheryl Darrow. She's based in Vegas, and she is part of a company that she and her husband own called Martian Productions, but it's spelled Marshun because his name is Mark Chinook. And
gotcha.
And so she produced this incredible festival last year that featured Filipino talent and was a big celebration of that. And the fourth person I'm still confirming. So I'm going to give you
Sure.
the first 3 weeks, and hopefully you tune into one of those and or all of them, which would be great. And
Yep.
yeah, just keep following us. We have a bunch of really great interviews that we've done, and there's a bunch of really exciting interviews scheduled throughout the year. So
Yep.
Come hang.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Producing All Asian. Check that out. Well, I think it's time, Don Mike, to share our Mount Rushmore of musicals.
Okay.
So just a couple ground rules to make sure
Okay.
the musical moniker isn't just strictly theater music. It could be film,
Movies. Okay.
Also, just so I don't know if I can name 4 theater. I probably could, but I don't. But just musical, period. Super broad. Do you want to alternate? Let's alternate.
Yeah, let's alternate. And also, I feel like if you name something that's not quite a musical movie, but it has music in it, that's cool too. That's
So I
fine.
think these are all
Qualify
musicals.
Okay.
Well, I know for sure 3 of them are. Okay, you go first. You're the guest.
Okay. So, first musical that I really like a lot, I will say, is the one I mentioned earlier, which is Thoroughly Modern Millie.
Okay.
It was a movie first that had Julie Andrews in it. And so Thoroughly Modern Millie is one of my top.
Okay.
top musicals.
I haven't heard of that one. I apologize. I
Okay.
know you even tried to help us, and it's a movie. I know. I know.
Yeah, now you have to listen to it. So
I will for sure.
that.
listen or watch it.
Or watch. Yeah, you can definitely see clips of it on YouTube. For sure.
Thoroughly Modern Millie.
Yeah, Thoroughly Modern Millie. Because
Okay. All right. This isn't any order. This is just one of my 4 favorites. I really like Moulin Rouge.
Hey, that's a good one. And it's on tour now.
Really?
Maybe it'll come through Columbus, but it's definitely coming through Pittsburgh. So you should probably venture to Pittsburgh when it's here.
We should. It's not that bad of a drive from Columbus.
No. And Moulin Rouge, the movie, is great. I love it.
Yeah. And so I've never seen the stage version. And I'm sure there's a little differences, but I don't know if that laugh was oh my gosh, who am I talking to?
I've heard good things about Moulin Rouge the musical, and it's they've done well on Broadway, and it's coming through cities now, and I'm looking, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it, because I don't have thoughts yet, because I haven't seen it yet either. So I've only seen the movie.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's on my list. You got 3 more here. The next one.
Another favorite one is Avenue Q. Have you heard of that one?
No, sir.
It is. I think you'll really like that one. It is a grown-up Sesame Street.
Ooh.
And it's so funny, and it's definitely one you can just listen to. You don't have to watch it. And it they have songs in it like everyone's a little bit racist, and the internet is for porn, and it's so funny.
I went to Christian college, and one of my friends, I vaguely remember, because he said, you have to check this song out, and it was that song. And I was like, no, the internet is for porn song. Yeah. And I was like, what the heck? And
like, what am I listening to?
Yeah. Well, and then someone added like World of Warcraft, like it was like this really insane YouTube video, but that might have been, I don't know, computer. Like, I don't even know.
It's a great show. Essentially, it's like if we had Sesame Street for grown-ups, this is what would be. It's super straightforward. They definitely have a line in it where they say, there's a song called For Now, and it's like the line is like, everything in life except for death and taxes is only for now. Like
I have heard of this.
Have you?
That's familiar too.
Yeah. It's super popular. So you've probably heard it, but didn't know it was that.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Because the For Now, that's familiar to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, Avenue Q.
Yeah, Avenue Q. All right, your turn.
Avenue Q. All right. This one, I have seen on Broadway.
Okay.
I have seen the film. And I think I like the Broadway version better. It's very, very popular. One of the, you have to see it in New York, Lion King.
Yeah.
it's just costumes, everything. It's just, it was great.
The stage version is so much better because there's more songs.
Yes.
Like I agree with you. Lion King's great.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the movie growing up, but that was just it was just so cool. They and I'm not sure if this is like a common theater trope, but like when the animals would come down the aisles, like it was just so cool.
They do that. They do that in theater. Aisleography.
Aisleography.
That happens. But
it was it's just so cool.
When we have time off the show, I'll tell you a story of what happened when my high school went to go see The Lion King in Toronto. It was traumatic for this poor young woman. But
oh no. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's on the Mount Rushmore for me. That's top 4. Just I would go see it anytime, probably.
Yeah. All right. Another show that I really like. Ooh.
I did just spring this up on you. Like I didn't even. We talked about what we're going to talk about, and this wasn't even into what we're going to talk about. It was just.
Yeah, no, but there's so. What's funny is I have a list of shows just out by chance, like on my bulletin board in front of my laptop. So like I'm like looking over to be like, is there anything on that list that like I feel like, you know what? Kiss Me Kate.
Okay, I have heard of that.
Not just because I was in it, but Kiss Me Kate is a fun show.
Yeah, there
are a lot of like really not things that didn't age well in that show, but it is a fun show.
Yeah,
because it's written by Cole Porter, so it's like really good. All right, and I know what my next one is because I looked at the list.
My next one. Okay, so if you mentioned one that didn't, you said age well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'll mention one that doesn't really age well. The Music Man. Right? I mean, he gaslights a whole town.
Oh my God, thank you. Like, I'm so glad that you
it's
that too.
So but
he gets away with it.
But there is character growth, right? I guess it's just again, my 6th grade music teacher really would showed us a lot of these musicals and a lot of these, like my initial beginnings of musical theater were just on a wheel cart TV in the front of the room watching these old things. And so of course you're cracking up at the She'll Poopy song, which is just like whatever.
Like, oh yeah.
But it was just
on Broadway again.
Really?
Yeah, it's back and it's starring the one and only Hugh Jackman and this woman Sutton Foster, who was the star of Thoroughly Modern Millie. And,
oh my goodness.
It's
New York.
In New York, yeah, I agree with you. The show itself did not age very well. Even this production, which I saw, it did not. The story does not age well because you get to the end of it and you're like, wait, did he really just gaslight everyone? And then she was like, I love him, and then that's the end of the show.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. But the music, though, I get it. It's a beautiful show.
The park song is just like it's just great. So. All right.
I watched it in 6th grade too. It's weird. I feel like it's in like 6th grade curriculums.
That is weird. Well, so yeah, that's okay. There we go. There's our did not age wells, which I feel like a few probably haven't. There are a handful that haven't really aged well.
I call Music Man now a moneymaker musical. If you do that show, it is bound to attract throngs of people because it's like families love it, old people love it. Like other people see it because they want to know the show because they have never seen it before. It just attracts a lot of money. And so, which is why people still do it. Nothing wrong with that. But all right, my next favorite.
This is the last one, at least for this. Yeah, we're doing just 4 here.
So there's a show called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. It's a very long title, but I
have heard of that title.
You have? Amazing. So that show, it's literally about a spelling bee, and it's like you meet all the kids. It's about kids in a spelling bee. So it kind of spoofs, like the national spelling bee that you see on TV. And so you meet all these characters, and they're all really weird in their own right, but they're lovable. And it just highlights the drama that happens behind the scenes at a spelling bee, and these kids who, just it's their whole world, and the weird teachers that are part of it, who you have like the teacher who's the the former spelling champion, and then you have the teacher who like, is just there because he has to be, and then like the comfort counselor who helps the kids who lose, but he's actually somebody who's on parole. Like there's all that kind of stuff. So it's a very cute show. So I do like
Okay.
it.
Very cool. I have a couple here that aren't on my list, but I don't know if they're musicals.
Okay, I can tell you probably if they are or not, or if I haven't heard of it.
Star is Born. Is that a musical? Would you consider
Is
that a
that-
musical?
I think it's only a movie, but there are different versions of the movie.
Yes, there are different versions.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a stage musical. I could be wrong,
Okay.
so don't quote me on that. But I
Okay.
do believe it is just a musical.
Okay. Wasn't sure where we're going to draw the line because that's going to affect my answers. Because I want to say like Moana. I know that's animated.
Moana is not a musical yet. I'm sure they're working on it. I would not be surprised if
It doesn't matter how many times I watch that. I cry every single time.
it's a really cute movie. I like it. a
Okay.
lot.
Well, I'll cross that one off. Okay. Here's one that I don't know. Yesterday.
Yesterday.
It's
Like
the movie where
Beatles?
the guy wakes up who loves the Beatles and the Beatles don't exist and he has to like
No, that's definitely not a musical. But I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen the movie
Okay.
either. I really should see that movie.
I will
It looks
mark that off the list. I'm down to one really basic answer, Mike, and it's Hamilton. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, do I have to apologize for that? Has the
not at
pendulum
all.
swung the other way?
Nope, not at all. Like
Okay.
Hamilton is still awesome. When it was here in Pittsburgh, I saw it. And that I've seen it. I'm not bragging. I
No, yeah.
acknowledge that this is a privilege because I have friends in the show, but like I've seen it 5 times.
Yeah.
It's so good. I've seen it in New York and DC and here in Pittsburgh, and it's just it's great. The
Yeah.
writing's awesome. The talent's like out of this world every time. And
we went in 2016 to Chicago. We saw Wayne Brady's first show as Aaron Burr,
Nice.
which was we didn't even know that was happening. It was just
yeah.
by the way, tonight is Wayne Brady's first show, and everyone was like going nuts. We didn't listen to the music. We weren't familiar with the story. We'd heard about it, but we just went into it blind, and it was like pretty mind blowing.
Incredible. And it's
Yeah.
like, and the more you listen to it, the more you discover about it because there's so much in it that Lin-Manuel like wrote into the show. Like definitely all the hip hop references, like all the like everything. It's no wonder why it won whatever the Pulitzer. Like there's a reason. So it's I don't think that's basic at all because I too am like a Hamilton.
Okay. Well, I almost feel like it's like everyone was now too many people know about it, and so now no one can like it because it's too
right. It's too big.
Yeah.
But-
And because of Hamilton, we went back and what's in the Heights and what's everything else, right? And so
Lin-Manuel, his musical. So the one trivia question that a lot of people don't get right is like, what musical did Lin-Manuel write before In the Heights? And like not like a handful of people get it because no one really paid attention to it at the time. And it's Bring It On the musical.
Really?
Yeah, like it's pretty good.
Yeah.
The show, like it's catchy. So if anybody ever had trivia questions you on like what did Lin-Manuel write before The Heights, it is Bring It On the musical.
Interesting.
And that went to Broadway. It was a thing. But one of my like not a stage, well, started as a movie, then became a stage musical, or rather it was stage musical, and then it was
I know it. Spider-Man.
Yes. Well, Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man the musical was like people got really hurt in that show. Have you heard about that?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think it ever happened, did it?
I think it did happen, but it didn't happen for very long.
Okay.
Just
enough to be your favorite.
Right.
Yeah.
Three of the Spider-Men are Latido alumni.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
Jake
incredible.
Odemark, Brandon Rubendahl, and Adam Roberts are those three are
Mhm.
they formed a boy group for like a little while, like a cappella boy group called Apollo Link, and they did Latido in New York
Oh wow.
together. and they're all super tall men. It's crazy. And so they're really nice. But the show that started as a musical and a movie or a TV movie in like the 60s, 70s, maybe the 60s, and then went away, became a stage musical, and then also was been on Broadway, and then was a TV show musical or a TV musical again in the 90s, Cinderella.
Oh yeah.
What I really love is the version that came out in 97 that starred Brandy, Whitney Houston, and Jason Alexander. Like that version is so it has a special place in my heart because it was like, you know, colorblind casting before colorblind casting was a thing.
Yeah.
It was like you cast the actor who's best for the part rather than trying to make it make sense in terms of like racial things.
Yeah.
And I think that was Whitney's goal with that. And the Prince is a Latino alum.
Incredible.
Crazy. Like he's somebody just like Jose Lana that my whole life, he was the only Asian prince that I'd ever seen in my life on TV. And he and I did a movie together called The Girl Who Left Home. And he's now a friend and has done Latino, and he's so cool. It's weird because like I'll text him and I'm like, I'm literally texting the prince from from Cinderella right now, and he's so cool and so nice, and he's, you know, a good a friend and colleague, and he's lovely. But you know, the movie we're in together is called The Girl Who Left Home. I'm a minor character. I was a associate producer on that, but he played the uncle in that movie, so he's now aging into the like dad uncle roles. Yeah, because he's only aging into it now because he's like 40 something and still looks like he's 30. So but yeah, that's my like stage musical but non-stage musical that I really enjoy.
This has been incredible. I am blown away at just the amount of name drops that just has sprinkled throughout the episode, and I don't even understand the gravity of the name drops that you're dropping. I just know that it's very impressive, and I appreciate the flex. I really do. It's pretty impressive. It's
crazy because some of these people I'm just like, oh, that's just somebody I know. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I'm saying this on purpose to be
right. my only name drop, and it's not even anything. I grew up with someone, a pretty close friend. She ended up marrying Corey Cott. She met him at Carnegie. He ended up being the lead at Newsies and everything. Yep. So
I saw him in Gigi.
Okay, yeah. Was that with
Vanessa Hudgens?
Vanessa, yeah.
And so I have never met him. I think he's probably the nicest person in the world, and he's so talented. And you know, I hope to see him in a show again one day.
I was at church in Chicago, and some of my students didn't believe that the just that small connection that I had with him, and so I texted his wife and I said, "Hey, would Corey just do like a quick 10-second video saying hi to these three names?" And he did, and they like freaked out because he was like holding their dog, and it was very, very nice.
So cool.
Yeah. But I can't wait to name drop you now, Don Mike, and all of my future conversations. You are just incredible. I can't wait to hang out in Scotland.
I'm so excited to see you.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be so great. Love it.
It's going to be great.
I love that the first time we're meeting each other is like not in this country.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be amazing. Safe travels, Don Mike.
Thank you.
Incredible. Check out Producing While Asian anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you've made it this long, we went a pretty good.
It was long.
This is great. Yeah, this was incredible. You know, and I still have more I wanted to ask you. We'll just have to record another one because I want to talk about, because I'm sure at some point you stopped being in marketing at American University.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to talk about that jump into the unknown and everything else. So we will do this again. It's incredible. Don Mike, thank you so much.
Thanks. I'll see you soon, Jake.
All right. Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this episode of the Chase Smith Podcast. Thanks and shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Follow us online at Press Play Pods. Visit our website at pressplaypodcast.com. Keep up with all of our shows and network news. You guys have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll catch you later. Thanks.